Okay, now we're going to start making some props to fill out that hallway we've been building, and I'm going to be doing that in another program. And like I said before, there is no perfect program for anything, any kind of art making, any more than there's any one perfect art supply. And so, in the case of making objects, although I could make them in Gravity Sketch, I actually like to go into an older VR tool. In fact, one that I learned very first when VR became a thing, which is Google Blocks, which sadly is no longer a supported app. You can get it, you can buy it, you can use it on a Quest or another headset that is tethered to a PC. It is not available for the Quest. And I find that although it's very simple, it's very easy and fun to make things, and it also demands that you make those things as low poly as possible, which is super handy for the kind of work that we're doing, especially anything that we're going to be viewing in VR. It's also what I do as part of my work at Mighty Coconut, building the walkabout courses with the team, is making objects and props and assets in here is really, really fast and fun. A couple things to point out is that I have an avatar. I have a person here that is going to represent the scale that these objects will roughly be in scale with. That's going to be helpful later. Blocks, like many 3D programs, don't necessarily have a real world measuring tool so that I understand her height. At this point, it doesn't really matter. Whatever I build, as long as it's in rough relationship to the size of a person, I can scale them up so that they work in our environment. And I can do that later in Blender, or I can do that in Gravity Sketch. Something else I can do too is that I can bring in concept images or reference images, and I can have them in the world with me, very much like Gravity Sketch, where I can build them with the reference right in front of me. So let's dive in. I'm not going to basically show you how everything is done or how to use this program. I'm just going to start building so you can see how quick and easy it is for me to do so. Another thing to notice is that I can lock or unlock the grid so that right now it's locked, and I can make it click to surfaces. The snapping surfaces is really, really valuable, something that Gravity Sketch does not currently have. I'm hoping one day it will. If I turn that off, then I can pick up any object and I can just move it around. And if for some reason I move it around and I need it to stick back on that surface, if I press the trigger, it will click back to that surface. That's especially important for things like chairs or anything that has to sit on the floor and stay on the floor. I want to make sure that when I export it, it is right angle to whatever surface it's going to fit or sit on when it goes into that. But a lot of these things are floating elements, so it's not necessarily as important. These little pucks that I've built, I've basically done that by taking the insert stroke tool, which I can make as many facets as up to, I think, 12. I can enlarge it, and then either I can draw like that, or let me undo that, or if I quickly double tap the trigger, then I have a small disk that if I put the grid on, I can then manipulate it, and I can not only expand it along that grid, I can grab it, I can make that right angle to the world and continue to do that. Or if I move over to extrude, then I can extrude and I can grow and shrink that surface this way. And you're going to see that's how I'm going to be able to make a lot of these objects, is just by this extrusion and this scaling each time I extrude. So we can get rid of that guy. And I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to grab one of these. I'm going to go over here to, let's say, one of these lanterns I'm going to want to have in my environment. And I'm going to just start by extruding and scaling. So I'm going to scale in there. I'm going to go up, and I'm just eyeballing it. Really, it is much more important that it feels right to me than whether or not it's slavishly holding on to the design that I have here. I'm going to sort of bring this up a little bit. That's too much, but I'm going to scale in and then push up. So when you look underneath it, there's a bit of a lip. Okay, and then I've got this sort of thing right here where the wick's going to live. So I'm going to pull, shrink, drop, up, whoops, a little too much, drop it down. Then I'm going to just do that. So that's the base, really fast. And because I'm in the environment with this, it's just very intuitive for me to do this. I could do this fairly quickly in SketchUp or Blender or Maya or Max, but the fact that I'm in the environment here while I'm doing this is really fun and intuitive. If I was building this for a super low poly game, I would not choose as many facets as I have right here. This is fairly extravagant, even for a low poly object like this. But in the end, it's more important that I just have something that basically represents what this prop will be. And remember, the environment that I'm building is a rough idea of what it could be, but it's not something I'm going to bring into a Pixar movie. Yeah, and the lower poly it is, the easier and faster it will be for me to work with it. So I'm going to make this hurricane lantern. So I'm going to start about that shape. I'm going to grab it and just sort of lock it to that surface. I'm going to grab the bottom, bring it down there, and now I'm going to extrude that. Well, you know what? Now that I see it, I wasn't even paying attention to my drawing. I'm going to bring that down. Come on, go down. Okay, and then I'm going to, oops, nope. I want to, let me try this again because I really haven't. So center it there. So I don't have a tool to easily let me place it. Notice the trouble I'm having. Well, that's not going to do it. So I'm going to go back to where I was before. That's centered. And I'm going to go do what I was doing before. So let's do that. Let's go to extrude. Okay, I'm going to see if I can grab just, oops, nope, that's not working. Just the line here. Nope. Just want to grab, there we go. Just grabbing this. And I'm going to try to drop it down. Come on, down you go. That's good enough. There we go. It's a little bit different than I was intending, but hey, I can make it any way I want. So let me grab another one of these. Let me grab one of these ones down here. There we go. Grab this surface. Nope. I have to extrude it. Go out like this. No, I'm gonna start that over. Let's do this. Enlarge it. Down. of these. Get smaller. Okay, and next I'm going to do this handle here. I'm just going to do this. That'll do. Okay, I'm eyeballing it. Okay, so that's a simple one. It needs some adjusting and simplifying and tweaking, but at the moment I can take all of this and then I can group the selection, and now I've got a lantern. So already I've got something simple that I can bring into our model later. Beforehand, I'm going to actually be bringing it into Blender and adding some color to it. But you're starting to get the idea. And if I want to go back in here and I want to tweak anything, I can take and ungroup it. So now it's the separate pieces again, and I can start to feel out. That looks better. I'm gonna drop this down a little bit more. Okay, that'll do for now. And I'm going to select it all again and group it. Okay, one object down. So I'm going to just speed this up without my commentary just for a few minutes and make a bunch of things so you can see what it's like for me to start building these objects in VR for VR. Okay, so you can see how quickly I'm able to just sort of spin these out just by looking at my reference and diving back in to the mode where I can make them right angle to the world. And I'm just going to continue building out these various objects, and then I'll be exporting them to another program, Blender, where I can color them and then I can export them and import them into my environment. So I hope this was helpful to just see how these tools can be used. And what I can't convey is just how much fun it is and how meditative it is just to go through and start building these objects. Although it can all be done in a traditional 3D application like Blender, I can guarantee it's nowhere near as enjoyable as the ability to just make these while you're in the environment, making them. So much of your relationship with these objects is based upon your relationship to its size in the virtual world. And so I'm going to build these out. I'll give you a quick preview of what that looks like when they're all done before I export it. Okay, here we are. I've finished up roughing out a bunch of furniture for the little Alice project. All of these were inspired by some really rough sketches I did in my sketchbook and did variations. I added this chair and a couple of other elements. So although I could use the paint tool and I could color these, I found that if I bring them in with one or two colors only, that it's easier for me to add the colors in Blender before I bring them back into Gravity Sketch. But as you can see, these are all super simple. And I did that on purpose because since I'm going to be working in VR and ultimately this would be experienced in VR, I want to make sure that it will be easy for it to be rendered, very much like our worlds in Walkabout Mini Golf. So next step is export this from Google Blocks, bring it into Blender, add some colors and textures to it, and then I'll bring it back into Gravity Sketch where I can start placing these elements by hand. So that's what we'll do next. See you then.